Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Caroline Dubois is open to fighting Elif Nur Turhan, plots path to undisputed. Caroline Dubois has welcomed a clash with Turkish knockout artist Elif Nur Turhan as she bids to clean out the lightweight division. The ring understands that Dubois, who holds the WBC title, is close to finalizing a deal to face WBO lightweight champion Terry Harper in an all-British unification clash next. She has no intention of moving up in weight thereafter.
Oh, so she's getting a fight. I half expected Terry Harper to target Stephanie Hearn instead of biting the bullet and facing Caroline.
Dubois has told the ring she plans to stay at 135 until she becomes undisputed. As it stands, that would include a clash with Turhan. The 30-year-old from Istanbul won the IBF title with a stunning knockout win over Beatriz Ferreira last month, and her promoter Eddie Hearn has already called out Dubois. The potential clash between Dubois, ranked number 1 by the ring, and number 2 Turhan, was also one of the ring's 10 most wanted fights for this year. I watched it and I was very surprised, as most people were. Dubois said about Turhan's knockout of Ferreira, very surprised, and credit to her. She shocked the world and shocked a lot of people in that performance. She's a world champion now, so she's one of the opposition for me, and that is definitely a fight I'd love to take. Terry Harper is the fight we want next. But after that, it's going to be either her or the American, Stephanie Hearn, who has the WBA title. It's just going to have to be a question of who makes the most sense. At the end of the day, I want to be an undisputed champion, so I'm gonna have to fight the champions one way or another.
Sure, but she's probably gonna do with Elif what she did with Beatrice and save her for last, since that's the most dangerous fight.
Dubois has already had a chance to see Turhan up close, given Turhan spent some time sparring at McGuigan's gym in London in preparation for her first-round knockout win over Shauna Brown in March. I never sparred her, Dubois said. She came down and sparred Ellie Scottney, so I watched them do some rounds, and I've got a good little eye. But sparring is sparring. I'm nothing like Ellie Scottney. Ellie's a lot smaller than me, and she's an orthodox fighter. I'm a southpaw. I'm a lot bigger, so it changes the dynamic a lot. I wouldn't really focus on that. Dubois, the 24-year-old from London, made no mistake in her latest defense of her WBC title when she widely outpointed Camila Panada in December in what was the first fight of her new deal with MVP. I will be an undisputed world champion, Dubois added. That's a fact. I think the plan for me is to stay at this weight and become undisputed, clean up. There's a lot of good challenges for me, Terry, the Turk, and the American, so those are 3 good names, and I want to be involved in those fights. As previously reported by The Ring, Dubois has regularly called out Harper, the ring's 3rd-rated lightweight, who is a fellow MVP fighter. However, Dubois goaded the 3-weight world champion from Yorkshire by pointing out that Jake Paul's promotional company has still not given her a fight, even though she signed terms in July. I think she's going to be slightly upset that I was pushed the way I was, Dubois said. She signed to MVP for a long time now, and she hasn't had a fight date. I signed, and I'm out. Just like that. So it tells you who is the most valuable on the promotion, and it's most definitely not her.
Even though I don't appreciate Caroline's noticeable arrogance, she's not wrong. If Terry inked a deal with them all the way back in July, MVP have done at least
3 shows?
3 or 4 shows since then. Some bigger, some smaller, but enough that she should have made her debut by now. So is the only reason they signed Terry to feed her to someone else,
or in anticipation of another signing, because they signed Terry before they signed Caroline, many months before. Did they know that they were going to pick up Caroline? And did they sign Terry on that premise? They don't seem to be using Terry for much. I imagine she's going to feel a bit put out by that, and I imagine she's going to maybe want to play her cards tight to the chest and maybe be a bit difficult about that. But the cards are on her side. It's all up to her. What other fight is there for her? Who does she want to fight? If she wants to fight the Turk, how much money is she going to get paid for that? The fight is going to be in the middle of nowhere. It's going to be an underwhelming fight because nobody really knows the Turk, and she doesn't speak English. So it really doesn't make a lot of sense. The biggest fight for her is me, so it makes more sense. If she sees that, we can make it happen next. And that's the fight I want.
Carolyn spends a lot of time chasing fighters that she admits she doesn't think are very good, which kinda lets it out the bag that you're looking for the low-hanging fruit. That if there is a good fighter at the weight, you're gonna steer clear of them. That's what you're doing now with the Golden Turk. And because it doesn't sound like the fight between Carolyn and Terry is done yet, it is possible that Terry goes after Stephanie Hearn, who just recorded a win over Hall of Fame inductee Holly Holm.
It's a bit nauseating to hear Carolyn turn her nose up at her contemporaries talking about how this one doesn't speak English and that one isn't all that well known. You're not all that well known either, Carolyn.
Oh, I'm the biggest fight for her.
Get over yourself. You've got one title, just one belt, like all the other girls at the weight. There's no quantifiable metric that suggests a fight with you is any bigger than a fight with them.
Near as I can tell, Stephanie Hearn has a more noteworthy win over a bigger name than anybody on your resume.
She beat Holly Holm. Who did you beat, Carolyn? Tell you what, I would prefer that Terry Harper targets Stephanie Hearn and they do a transatlantic fight between them so that Carolyn doesn't have a choice but to deal with the Golden Turk. I'm sick and tired of watching this broad look for the low-hanging fruit and act like she's God's gift to boxing for doing so.
If you're supposed to be Billy Badass, get out there against another badass and prove it.
Look, Virgil can fight 2 or 3 different guys in mega fights. He's got options. Imagine him with Errol Spence at Dallas Cowboys Stadium.
This guy's still throwing around Errol Spence Jr.'s name as if Errol Spence Jr. is given any ETA on when we can expect him to return.
And as if Virgil Ortiz will be the first guy he fights upon his return.
A fight that isn't made with a fighter who isn't fighting and hasn't fought in close to 3 years is not leverage.
Or Sebastian Fundora in a mega fight in Vegas. Boots is part of the plan, but it doesn't have to be next.
Translation, you don't want it to be next. You want to marinate it. You want to wait a while longer so that if you do it, it will be bigger.
Confirmation of what I already thought. Eddie Hearn and Matchroom are now ready to make the fight, but Golden Boy is sandbagging it. He's not wrong that it doesn't have to be next, but it's the zone that wants it to be. So what are you telling them? No?
But Eddie, since you're so desperate to make this fight, then let's do this. 60-40 for Virgil and 5% to the winner. Because I'm generous and I'm not moving off those numbers. You're the one who's begging for this fight. So let's go.
I personally don't think the higher-ups at DAZN find Oscar's shenanigans at all cute or charming that you're sandbagging it for a fight that should be easy to make when both fighters and both of their promoters are on the same platform. They used to say that guys are on different sides of the street, and that's what holds up a fight. These guys are on the same side of the street.
So what's the holdup now?
Oscar, Golden Boy Promotions. There can only really be 2 reasons that Oscar is demanding the lion's share. It could be to make up for the money they missed out on when Turkey wanted to do the fight, because when Turkey wanted to do the fight, he was likely putting up more money to do it than just DAZN.
Problem was Boots was still at welterweight pursuing Undisputed, so he turned it down. Now, without Turkey involved, there's not as much money in the pot, so Oscar's demanding the lion's share to make up for what they lost. It could be that, or it could be a stall tactic. A plain old stall tactic because Oscar knows this fight is not actually that big. If you put this on pay-per-view out there right now, I'd be surprised if it brings in 250,000.
Boots don't got that big a following yet. Neither does Virgil. And with the market being the way that it is, if you did this fight now, right now, I'd be surprised if it brings you 250,000. Maybe they were willing to do it before on Turkey's dime because Turkey pays above market value for what a fight costs.
That's what they're holding out for. Something semblant of the money that Turkey was willing to put up. The problem is, Turkey's not involved anymore, and yesterday's price is not today's price.
Might seem a decent enough argument for the boxing fans at each other's throats over who's in the right and who's in the wrong here, but I don't think it will be an adequate excuse for the higher-ups at DAZN.
So you're telling us, Oscar, that the only way you're willing to do this fight is if somebody pays above market value. Otherwise, you won't deliver. There is a rumor out there that Golden Boy Promotions' DAZN deal is set to be up this summer, and if this fight don't materialize, I think they will have these negotiations in mind. And what exactly is it that Golden Boy has brought to the platform in terms of content, in terms of value.
Golden Boy Promotions' shows are really just an afterthought behind everything you're getting from Matchroom and what you're set to get from Queensberry. That many of the biggest names on the platform either fight for Matchroom or Queensberry. When you think about it, the biggest name on Golden Boy is Ryan.
But Ryan Garcia barely fights.
The biggest fight that Ryan was involved in was one that DAZN had to share with Showtime in the Gervonta Davis fight. And after that, Ryan's schedule of activity took a hit. He really doesn't fight that much, to where if Golden Boy Promotions' only ace in the hole is Ryan Garcia, well, that's not much of an ace.
Things that DAZN may have in mind when the deal is up and whether or not they should even renew with Oscar. What of value is he bringing to the table when all he seems to do is complicate things, just like his fighters do? It should not be that difficult to make a fight between two guys who box on the same platform.
It just shouldn't.
Oscar also mentioned a Sebastian Fundora fight, but Sebastian is rumored to be rescheduling his fight with Keith Thurman. If he is, then he's not a substitute for Jaron Ennis, who's available right now. If he isn't...
I mean, think about who Oscar's bringing up. Quasi-retired Errol Spence Jr., who's given us no ETA on when he's going to return, and Sebastian Fundora, who might be occupied with Thurman. This is supposed to be your leverage against Eddie Hearn, against Boots Ennis, that you have all these other options.
What fucking options? A retiree and a guy who's busy?
Now, there was a time where the promotional outfits could afford to do stuff like this, when the boxing landscape was a lot more fertile and the networks were a lot more involved, when there were more of them,
and they were kicking out more money. You could afford to keep your fighter busy while you marinate a fight in hopes to make it bigger. But those times have long since passed. Do you think DAZN wants to pay for more fights? Like the Lubin fight?
Boots is part of the plan, but it doesn't have to be next. But Eddie, since you're so desperate to make this fight, then let's do this. 60-40 for Virgil and 5% to the winner. Because I'm generous and I'm not moving off those numbers. You're the one who's begging for this fight. So let's go.
Agreed on the deal. And I'll say it because obviously Oscar's, 50-50 and 5% for the winner. Okay? So basically 55-45 to the winner. We all agreed and we left the room to make the deal. Jaron Ennis signed the contract and Virgil Ortiz didn't sign the contract. Okay? Now, if they don't want to do that deal anymore and they want to renege on their word, that's fine. I'm not going to moan about it, but I have to speak to my client because that's very different to what was agreed in the room. I really don't feel like this is the most obvious 50-50 fight that can be, but I'm very happy to look at, and I'm not going to come out and go, winner takes all. We'd do that. But anything can happen in boxing, and you've got to protect the fighter. But I'm happy to have that overlay of a bigger percentage for the winner. So if you truly believe you're going to win the fight, you will get by far the lion's share. And I'm not going to come out and tell you what it is, and I'm not going to.
Would you go as far as 60-40 to the winner?
I'm going to go back to Oscar De La Hoya, who at the moment, touch wood, everything's friendly. I believe Oscar De La Hoya wants to make the best fights. And when he says, Eddie, you're desperate, you're showing your hand, I am desperate. I'm desperate to make the best fights in boxing for DAZN. And for me, this fight is the best fight in American boxing.
Where does Rick Meridian's position in this? Because there's been a lot of...
No, we don't have any conversations with Rick Meridian. We only deal with Golden Boy on this fight. We're not interested in talking to Ortiz's manager. I think Oscar was talking about something else. But we just want to deal with Oscar De La Hoya and Eric Gomez, and we want to do it in a friendly and cordial fashion. And I will be going back to them this week with my ideas to try and make the fight. I have to speak to my client because we agreed, and everybody in that room knows what was agreed. But if that's not on the table anymore, we've got to revisit it.
It's not about preference, it's about objectivity. It's about who's trying to make this fight and who isn't. If it's the way that Eddie Hearn says it is, and they already agreed to a deal, which is what he's been saying, 50-50.
Really, 55-45. 55 to the winner, whoever the winner is.
DAZN would have seen this and then saw Oscar go back on the deal, drag things out in pursuit of more money, because at least he thinks he has time.
It's a mistake a lot of people make.
Harkening back to a time when the boxing landscape was more fertile, and you could afford to keep your fighter busy in filler fights and stay busy fights as the networks kicked out more and more of their money for you to be able to do so.
Those days are over.
Oscar shouldn't have it in his head that Golden Boy is in any way indispensable to DAZN as a promotional outfit because they just brought Queensbury into the fray, and Queensbury has the keys to the heavyweight division, by and large, more valuable than anything on Golden Boy Promotions' roster. When you think about it, what do you think will yield a bigger return? The ring return of Tyson Fury, the Gypsy King in the UK, or Ryan Garcia versus Mario Barrios in the US?
Ryan, who's literally coming off a loss, and Mario, who drew with a 46-year-old.
Tyson Fury is coming off a loss too, it's important to note that, but those Brits are a lot more receptive to their boxing than the Americans are to theirs. The point being, with Queensbury Promotions now on DAZN, Golden Boy becomes less important. Queensbury has the heavyweight division. They've got Fury, they've got Fabio, they've got Agit Kabayel,
Moses Italma,
and an entire stable of other fighters, many of them British, which allows them access to the British boxing scene that right now is more fertile than the American one, that they don't really need Golden Boy.
You hear Oscar talking a lot about working with the PBC? You want to end up on Amazon like them?
Fuck this up and you might. You might end up just like the PBC and their brand of GoFundMe boxing, crowd-funded boxing, where practically every card is behind a paywall and you have to rely solely on the fans to make any money.
Isn't that the way boxing already is?
No. Promoter gets their money from the network they have a deal with. They get a budget, whereas the PBC gets no budget from Amazon. They put their cards together, put them out there on pay-per-views, cross their fingers, then hope for the best.
That's the direction that Golden Boy Promotions is heading in if they don't satisfy their broadcast partner and deliver them a fight. When it was initially reported that DAZN is applying heavy pressure on the powers that be to put together Boots Ennis versus Virgil Ortiz, they're not applying pressure on Matchroom, you know.
They're not the ones under pressure. If the story is the way it's being reported, Eddie and Matchroom would appear team players to DAZN. But Oscar and Golden Boy would appear a waste of time with a dysfunctional stable of fighters that don't provide much value to the platform for the money they're kicking out.
What do I always say about American boxers and American boxing? If you're talking about it, you're likely talking about why a fight isn't happening, none of which is conducive towards the growth of the sport in this market or investing in it. That it's no wonder so many networks have withdrawn.
It's too unstable to make any money on. Too many personalities, too many moving parts, too many fingers, and too many pies.
And this shit, this dysfunctional shit is what's supposed to be better than Zuffa.
For all the people that have been having a go at Zuffa boxing and what's supposed to be their insulated infrastructure that would allow them more control over what happens, this shit you're seeing, this is the alternative, and you're telling me that this is better.